We sit down to watch these horror movies already knowing where it all ends up, right? You've seen so much, you've clocked so many tricks, that by the end you just go, okay, got it, he dies, she survives, the thing wins, done. And you get up off the couch, kill the lights, go to bed. But there's one kind of ending that won't let you sleep. And it's not the bloody one. It's not the jump scare. It's not the face in the mirror. It's the one where the person survives. Because death, underneath it all, is mercy. Death is a door. When somebody dies in a movie, their suffering is over. What's left is the pain of the people still standing. But what happens when the script decides not to kill you? What happens when the script decides you're going to keep breathing, keep waking up every single morning, keep existing, just not as you anymore? I want you to do something with me right now before I say one word about this movie. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and everything's normal. Your bed, your room, your body, your hands, that stain on the ceiling you've known since you were a kid. And you get up and you walk to the kitchen, except you didn't decide to get up. You try to stop and the leg keeps walking. You try to scream and your mouth opens and out comes a good morning in a soft voice, a sweet voice, a voice you have never once used on that person in your life. And you're in there. You're all the way in there with every memory, with all your disgust, with all your terror, and nobody can see you. Nobody. Because from the outside, everything's fine. From the outside, you're smiling. From the outside, you're in love. And that's the thing nobody said right about Obsession, the Curry Barker movie that outgrossed Blair Witch and had everybody walking out of the theater saying the same sentence. Guy made a wish. Wish went wrong. Be careful what you wish for. The whole monkey's paw routine we've heard 1,000 times. Except that is not what happened in there. The wish did not go wrong. The wish went perfectly. The wish delivered, with cruel precision, exactly what Bear asked for. And what he asked for, if you actually stop and listen to the whole sentence, slowly, without romanticizing it, is not a girlfriend. It's not love. It's not company. What he described, word for word, is a pet. And here's where it gets genuinely sick, because the movie hands you that in the first few minutes, and you don't even notice. You're still settling into your seat, still digging into the popcorn, and Curry Barker already laid the whole key in front of you and walked off whistling. Bear comes home, and his cat, Sandy, is dead. Dead from getting into a pill bottle. Oxycodone. His dead grandmother's oxycodone, left sitting out because Bear couldn't be bothered to close the lid. And the movie plays it almost like a sad little joke, a character detail, one of those beats where you look at the guy and think, poor kid, rough day. Nobody dwells on it. Nobody keeps that name. Sandy. Nobody walks out of that theater talking about Sandy. And that is exactly where the most disturbing thing in this whole movie lives. Because in the days after that cat dies, this same guy, alone in a house that suddenly got way too big, empty bowl on the kitchen floor, with that specific silence that shows up when an animal dies. The silence nobody can really explain, but anyone who's lost a pet knows on sight. He takes a little occult gag gift he bought for somebody else, and he snaps it. And he makes the wish. He didn't ask for that out of nowhere. He didn't ask on a normal day. He asked in the stretch of his life where his grandmother was dead. Her pills were still in the cabinet, and the one creature that loved him for free died on his kitchen floor. And look, I'm not saying he consciously thought, I'll go replace my cat. Nobody thinks like that. Nobody puts it in those words. But a wish doesn't listen to your pretty words. A wish listens to the hole. And the hole in that guy had the exact shape of an animal. Now pay attention to what he actually said, because that one sentence is the whole movie. It's the scariest thing in the script, and nobody catches it. He asked for her to love him more than anyone else in the world. More than anyone else in the world. Sit with that for a second. That's not a request for love. That is not how people love. A person who loves you has a mother, a brother, a friend from second grade, a job she actually likes, a song she listens to alone on the bus that has nothing to do with you, a Sunday afternoon that's hers, period. Human love shares space with the rest of the world. Human love coexists. You are an important part of that person's life. You are not that person's life. Now there is one kind of love on this planet that works exactly the way Bear asked for it. Absolute love. No competition, no context, nothing around it. A love where the creature hears your key in the lock, and her entire day starts at that moment. A love where she sits by the door and waits, with no concept that a world exists out there. A love where she has nobody else because she has nobody, where her world is exactly your size and nothing beyond it. You know what love that is? That's an animal's love. That's the dog in the window. That's the cat sleeping on your foot, who has no idea there's an ocean on the other side of the city. And that's it. And that's what hurts. That's what he asked for in those words. And the toy heard him perfectly. The toy got nothing wrong. The toy is a perfect, honest translator. And it translated that kid's grief into its exact native language. He wanted Sandy back. And the universe said, fine, here. Except this time Sandy is 5'3" and has a name and has a family who'll notice she's gone, and you're going to have to look at her every single day. Because that's what happened to Nikki. And here's what I need you to understand before we go deeper. Because a lot of people walked out of that theater thinking the thing that took her over was a ghost, a demon, an entity, whatever. Something from outside that evicted her and moved into the vacancy. And if that were it, honestly, that would be merciful. Because if she'd been evicted, she wouldn't be in there anymore. She'd be somewhere, who knows where, but not there. Except the movie doesn't do that to her. The movie is so much crueler. Because over and over, if you're watching closely, the real Nikki surfaces. She comes up. She fights. There are those seconds where the thing slips a little on her face, and you see a terrified girl looking out, trying to warn somebody, trying to say something, and then her face reassembles and goes back to smiling. And if she can surface, if she can come up, that means she never left. She was in there the whole time. She watched all of it, every hug that body gave, every I love you that came out of that mouth, every night, every touch, every look. She was behind her own eyes watching it happen, front row, unable to turn her head, unable to close her eyes, unable to pass out. Because passing out isn't on the table either. She didn't even get that. She became the audience for her own life being used by something else. And worse, she wasn't the audience for some obvious torture with blood and screaming, which anybody would understand. She was the audience for a domestication. She was locked in there, watching her own body learn to be docile. And this is where I want us to sit for a minute, because everybody talks about how scary this movie is, and nobody talks about how boring it is. And the boring part is the worst part. Think about the routine of it. Don't think about the big scenes. Think about the small ones, the dead hours. She's at his place. Her stuff is scattered around, a jacket, a hairbrush, the things you leave behind when you start staying over at somebody's house. Except she didn't choose to leave any of it. She looks at that jacket and she remembers the store she bought it in, remembers the day, remembers who was with her, and her body walks right past it into the kitchen to make him something. She sees her own life laid out around the room, like evidence at a crime she can't report. And Bear just lives. That's the unbearable part. He wakes up, he complains about work, he puts music on, he eats, he laughs, he gets in a mood over something stupid. He lives the completely ordinary life of a guy in his 20s, with the woman he destroyed circulating through the house like affectionate furniture. There's no basement, no chains, no dungeon. It's worse. It's a normal house. It's a Tuesday afternoon. It's the sound of the refrigerator. And it's inside that gentle everyday that an entire person is being erased, with nothing in the frame telling you it's happening. And she figures something out in there, and it's the filthiest discovery in the movie. She figures out that fighting makes it worse. Every time she pushes, every time she surfaces and tries to scream, tries to warn him, tries to break through, what comes afterward is worse for her. Because the thing clamps down. Because the body reacts. Because Bear gets spooked and pulls away, and the thing inside her panics to win his attention back. And then she gets used to do something even more extreme, and she's watching all of it. Every time she tries to save herself, she gets used to do something that will make her hate herself even more afterward. So there comes a point, and that point is in the film, where her strategy stops being fight and becomes endure. Stay quiet. Let the body work. Don't surface. Because surfacing hurts more. And that's the most human and most devastating thing there is. because it's exactly what happens to real people inside real houses. People who learn that yelling costs too much. People who learn that disagreeing costs too much. People who learn to smile at the right moment and go unnoticed inside their own home. People who learn to become tame animals in order to survive. And the movie doesn't say any of that with a single complicated word. It just shows a girl lying down in a guy's lap, and you get this cold drop in your stomach, and you can't explain why. And I'll tell you why. You feel cold because somewhere in your head, you clocked that that person is disgusted. You clocked that there's somebody in there who's disgusted, purring out of obligation. And if you're listening to me and that tightness in your chest just hit, if this idea of trying to speak and having your voice not reach a single person landed on you for some reason, hit the like on this video. Seriously, it's not about the number. It's not about the algorithm. It's because the like is literally the one thing this girl never got. It's you sending a signal out without needing anybody's permission. She spent the entire movie trying to do that and never managed it once. You can do it with one tap. Do it for her. And subscribe to Fractured Plot, because this is where we dig into the basements these movies try to keep shut. Now let's talk about the eyes. Because there are these moments in the film, and you know exactly which ones I mean, where her expression drops. You know when somebody's face goes empty for a second. It's not anger, it's not fear, it's nothing dramatic, it's a blank. Her face just stops. And then, in the middle of that blank, something switches on behind it and looks out. And it lasts almost no time. It lasts as long as it takes you to think, wait, and it's gone. And most people watch that and think it's the thing showing itself, the monster peeking out. It's the opposite. It's the opposite. That's not the monster surfacing. That's her. That's Nikki reaching the surface through the one crack she has left, burning God knows how much of herself to buy 3 seconds of her own face, and spending those 3 seconds on the only thing she can still do, which is look. Look at somebody, look at anybody, look out. And the thing that gets me most, and I've been chewing on it since I left the theater, is that she looks and there's nobody on the other side. The people around her don't clock it. Her friends don't clock it. And Bear sees it. He sees it. There are these instances where he notices, where the thing doesn't quite close right, where something in that face doesn't match the woman he's known since they were kids. And he looks away. He swallows it. He decides not to see. And then he says some sweet little thing. He settles her. He pulls her back into his lap, and the subject dies. And that's the real crime in this movie. Not the wish, not the toy, not the supernatural. The crime is that he saw it and chose not to see it. Because choosing not to see is cheaper than giving it up. He'd rather keep the tame animal than rescue the person. And watch how he handles her from that point on, with that kind of care that isn't the care you give an equal. He gets comfortable way too fast. He gets used way too fast to a woman with no opposing opinion, no plans of her own, no urge to go out, who doesn't fight, who doesn't disappear, who doesn't get in a mood on her own terms, who never has a bad day that isn't about him. He complains. He's horrified by the violence. He has breakdowns. Yes, he does. The movie doesn't make him a mustache-twirling villain. But not once, not one time, does he give it up on his own. He complains about the water temperature and stays in the tub. And that's what makes this movie about something we see every day and pretend we don't. This guy who thinks he's one of the good ones, who thinks he got a raw deal, who spent his life believing he was a nice guy nobody ever picked. And the first chance he got to have somebody without having to tolerate that somebody being a whole person with her own wants and limits and a no in her mouth, he took it. No hesitation. He didn't want to be loved. He wanted to not be turned down. And there is an enormous difference between those two things. And that difference is exactly the size of a human being. And now we get to the part people talk about most, which is the violence. The moment it stops being strange and starts being bloody, when she starts hurting anyone who comes close. And everybody reads that as jealousy. Sick jealousy, obsession. The ready-made reading we all bring from home. Except jealousy is a human thing. Jealousy has math in it. It has comparison. It has the pain of picturing you with somebody else. What happens in there has none of that. What happens in there is territory. It's animal. It's that dry, wordless thing where a creature sees a threat approaching what's hers and acts before a single thought has time to exist. There's no real rage, no plan, no revenge. There's just the dumb, absolute certainty that this is mine and nobody touches it. And that's why it scares us so much, because there's a humanity missing from it, and we feel the absence immediately without being able to name it. And while her body is doing those things, she's there, always there, watching her own hands, watching what her own hands did, knowing the names, Sarah, Ian, remembering old conversations with them, remembering birthdays, remembering something stupid, remembering some random sunny afternoon with them, while she watches her own body destroy it. And that doesn't go away. That doesn't vanish when it's over. That is burned into her with the clarity of somebody who was present, because she was present. She was there for all of it, and that's the bill that comes due afterward, and it's the cruelest bill this movie charges. And let me get to the sickest detail Curry Barker planted in this script. And he planted it so coldly, I refuse to believe it was an accident. Bear's cat died from pills. Oxycodone. Pills. Hold on to that. And at the end, when everything collapses, when the house comes down, when it reaches the point of no return, Bear dies of a pill overdose. In the bathroom. The same death. The exact same death as his animal. The movie opens on a cat dead from those pills and closes on the owner dead from those pills. And in between there's a girl he turned into an animal. You see the shape that makes, right? It's a circle. It's a collar in the shape of a circle. He wanted to replace Sandy, and in the end, he became Sandy. He asked for an animal's love, and he got it. And the price of that love was dying the way an animal dies, not quite understanding what's happening on a bathroom floor, alone. And look, some people are going to call that poetic justice. Some people are going to applaud. The spell turning on the caster, he had it coming. Great. I can't find it beautiful in any way, and I'll tell you why. Because his death doesn't undo one single thing. And I have to correct something here, because half the internet is running with the idea that Bear died never knowing what he'd done. He knew. He called the One Wish Willow customer service line, and the guy on the phone offered to put her on. And the real Nikki screamed into that phone. He heard her. He heard her in there, and he hung up. And before we get to the ending, I need you to stay with me on a question that hasn't left my head since I saw it. And it's a question the movie doesn't answer because it didn't have the nerve, or because it was smart enough to leave you answering it alone in the dark. And the question is, what if it had taken longer? What if that had lasted 6 months? What if it lasted 2 years? Because how long can a person be the audience for her own life before she starts forgetting that she's the person and not the audience? There's a limit to that. There's a limit to how long you can keep repeating to yourself, I'm not this, I'm not this, I didn't choose this, I'm something else, I had a life, I had a way of laughing, I had opinions about things. You can hold that for weeks, maybe for months. But if nobody on the outside ever confirms it, if not one living person ever looks at you and says, I know you're in there, at some point, that inner voice starts getting thinner. And then it starts getting far away. And then, on some random day, with no dramatic scene, no score cue telling you this is important, it just doesn't show up anymore. And it's not that the person dies that day. It's worse. It's that she stops showing up for herself. And if you keep making the gestures, if you keep saying the lines, if you keep lying down in that lap every day, every day, every day, at some point, there's no separating the performance from you. The gesture becomes you. A person doesn't turn into an animal in a snap, with a special effect, with a pretty transformation on screen. A person turns into an animal from rehearsing the animal too many times. And what saved Nikki, if we can even use that word, wasn't willpower. It wasn't courage. It wasn't her being stronger than somebody else would have been. It was time. It was just the clock. It was that it ended early. And that makes me sick to think about, because it means the difference between a person who comes back and a person who doesn't isn't character, isn't resilience, isn't anything noble. It's calendar luck. It's the thing ending on a Tuesday and not 3 winters from now. And if you've ever lived near somebody who spent too long somewhere bad, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And you know the person who comes out after a long time is not the person who went in and never will be again. And there's no wish, no toy, no miracle that gives it back. Because some things don't come back. Some things have a shelf life. Some things erase. Because there's one thing that has to be said about this ending. And it's the thing nobody wants to say. Because it ruins everybody's relief. When he dies, the curse breaks. She comes back. And the whole theater exhales. That collective breath of it's over. She's saved, thank God. Except look at what coming back actually means in that situation. She opens her eyes, holding a gun. The thing was 1 second away from putting to her own head, in a house that isn't hers, 2 bodies on the floor, weeks of things she did without being her. And she remembers. All of it. That's the point. And that's why this story has no happy ending, even with the villain dead. She didn't wake up from a bad dream. She doesn't get the moment where she goes, wow, weird nightmare, and moves on with her life. She has first-person memory of every single thing. She remembers the taste, the smell, the weight of his body, the sound of her own voice saying, I love you to the guy who did that to her. And memory doesn't come with a label. Memory doesn't come with a little note saying this part wasn't you. Don't worry about it. It all comes mixed together, all of it in first person, all of it wearing your face and your voice. She's going to spend the rest of her life with an album of intimate memories she never authorized. And there's no explaining that to anybody. Think about the practical part, which is where the horror actually lives. How does she tell it? To the cops, to her mom, to a friend, to a doctor, to any living creature on this planet. How does she open her mouth and say a novelty item from an occult gift shop turned her into a pet for weeks? Nobody is going to believe her, ever. Not one person, nowhere, ever. And it's worse than not being believed, because there are 2 dead bodies in that house, and every piece of physical evidence points straight at her. She doesn't walk out of that room a survivor. She walks out of it a suspect. That's the sentence, not the possession, the aftermath. The prison was never the body, you get it. It was never the body. The prison was nobody on the outside being able to reach you, and that prison stays open for her until the last day of her life. And there's one more layer, and this is the one I find dirtiest of all, because a lot of people came out of that theater thinking the second wish was her way out, that she snapped a second One Wish Willow and freed herself. She didn't. Look at it carefully. That second wish was made by the thing wearing her, and what it asked for was that Bear would love her back. The same wish. The mirror of his. The exact same shortcut past the work of actually being chosen. So think about what that means. In the entire movie, she does not get one free action. Not one. She never asks for freedom. Never asks for her life back. Never asks for him to be erased off the face of the earth. She never gets the microphone at all. The thing used the last wish to close the loop, and what actually freed her was a body giving out on a bathroom floor. Chemistry, not her. She didn't escape. He just ran out of time first. And if she ever manages to tell somebody this, that's the part she won't be able to say out loud. It won't be the violence. It'll be that. And if you've made it this far with me, if you've got that weight in your chest right now, I want to ask you something before we finish, and I want you to answer it for real, in your head, no dressing it up. If it were you locked in there, looking out, no voice, no hands, nothing, knowing that fighting only makes it worse, and that going along with it is the only way to get through one more day, would you fight until there was nothing left of you? Or would you lie down in your enemy's lap and purr to survive? Think about it honestly before you answer, because almost everybody thinks they'd fight. Almost everybody thinks that. Subscribe to Fractured Plot and tell me your answer in the comments, because the answers that come in on questions like this one are scarier than any movie. And then the movie ends, the credits roll, and you go home thinking you watched a story about a cursed toy. You didn't. You watched a story about a guy who missed being loved without effort, without having to tolerate the other person being a person. And that's what keeps me up, because his wish isn't exotic. His wish isn't a monster's wish. If you're honest, for 10 seconds, you've heard somebody say a version of that wish out loud. At a bar, at a family dinner, in some random video online. You've heard somebody say they wish their partner was more chill, easier, less complicated, less work, not so difficult, more like company and less like a person. And nobody thinks that's monstrous. Nobody does. People think it's cute. And the movie did us the favor of showing what happens when that request gets granted to the letter. No negotiation, no real world softening the blow. Barker said it flat out. The willow was never the cursed thing. The wish was. And the answer is a girl alive, walking around the house, cooking, smiling, saying beautiful things, with nobody home. The answer is a bowl on the floor. Because at the end of the day, Nikki didn't become Bear's cat, because a spell stuck her soul inside an animal. Nothing that fantastical. Curry Barker is a lot crueler than that. She became his cat because that was the exact shape of the hole he had in him. And a wish is a mold. A wish pours a person into the shape of your emptiness, and she hardens in that shape. He buried his grandmother, he lost Sandy, and he asked for a replacement, and the universe understood him perfectly and served. And here's the detail I can't get out of my head, and it's not the one everybody repeats online. Bear knew. He knew. He'd heard her scream through a phone line. He'd been told flat out that the only way to end a wish is for the person who made it to die. He knew exactly what he'd done and to whom. And he still got the merciful exit, because that last wish caught him mid-overdose, and what it did was make him feel loved. He walked out of that bathroom calm. He died in her arms, feeling chosen, feeling like it had finally become a love story. He got the good death. She got the room, alone, knowing every detail, with nobody to share it with her body holding the memory of things she never wanted, with one of those toys still sitting somewhere out there in the world, on a dusty shelf in some shop, waiting for the next lonely guy to come home and find the house too empty. That's the ending. It isn't the guy dying in the bathroom. The ending is her waking up. The ending is her existing afterward. The ending is the rest of her life being a quiet room where she knows everything and can't tell anyone, and where everyone around her keeps saying she got lucky, that she was saved, that she won, that it turned out okay. And she's going to have to smile and agree. She's going to have to smile and agree, which happens to be the thing she learned to do better than anything else in this world.